Alrighty, so for our Learn Together Week 9, we are now moving into the part of this class that we actually get to create web pages and we get to use JavaScript to update those pages. So for the first part of the Learn Together, in your public repo for this class, I want you to take an array of objects. Now, some of you already built this out in your Develop It 2 for one or both of your programs, but if not, create an array of objects. I'll show you mine in a second. And you need at least 3 objects in that, at least 5 in that array. Okay, and then I want you to create an index page in your public repo. So this is all about what we learned in this section that we just finished with Andrew, right up to lecture 53, and then create an associated JS file. Where you place your array of objects. Okay, and then use the new JS functions, and really I should say methods, APIs in a way, because it's the DOM that Andrew showed us right in this section to determine some output based on your criteria. And this is where he was showing on his to-do list, right? For him it was that if they were not complete yet, but I'm going to show you how I've done it, and I want you to come up with your own way criteria that you will show, and then display all the objects on the page, right? And then I want you to take a print screen of the output, and then embed that like we've done before, right? So embed that into your reply, and then also give us a link to the repos so that we can actually look at the code. Okay, so let me go over this and then I'll talk about the second item. So in VS Code, in that repo for public, I created an index page, right? And then I gave it a heading 1 just for my major heading, and then I put a link to the JS file. Now in my particular case, because I already had a JS file setting out there, I decided to create a subdirectory called JS and then link my JS file there. You don't have to if you don't want to, but it is just, I think, good organization practice to have your JS files in a separate directory. But again, if you want to put them like he did in this example in the same directory, that's okay too. Okay, so that's the first part, is just setting up that. Now we're not doing any CSS. If you want to make this look nicer, you know, go for it. I think that's a great skill, and we will be talking, I think, towards the end about making these look a little nicer, but for now we're just writing JavaScript to update this DOM. So then I looked at my temperature, my energy temperature. I noticed I had a daily. I didn't in this case. I had in my other one an array of objects, but I decided to just take this basic data and create one. So in this file that I've linked into my index.html, I created an array of objects with dates and kilowatt usage. Okay, so that's the first thing, is just create that. Now, in a sense, we're stepping back a little bit from writing methods here, just to kind of get some base, get this core knowledge down before we go more advanced. And that's really what we're doing here. So don't take this as this is the new style. This is not. This is just kind of getting over, getting some of this code into our heads and into our experience. So what I decided to do is to create big energy days, and then I would filter through my array of objects, looking at each day and then returning where the kilowatt is greater than 8 kilowatts, right? So in my example, I knew I would only return 1, right? And that's where, and we'll look at my page here, right? So there was one day you used over 8 kilowatts. And so in that case, I then set up a heading, created an element in H2, and then in that context, I then put a string that I had just created for a link to give me how many there is there, because remember, this returns an array. So length tells me how many I have. And then using the query selector, attaching it to the body, we'll definitely learn better ways to do this in the future by using IDs and other methods, or other ways, but mostly IDs. And then append child, the result of creating that element. Because remember, that element's just kind of hanging out there. You're adding to it some content, but then you actually have to inject it into the DOM by doing append child. So that's the first one where I was talking about a criteria. Okay, and then I want you to, in this case, there's various ways, but for each sure makes sense. I'm going to take my array of objects. I'm going to do something similar with creating, right? In this case, I'm going to create a P. Now this follows right along with what we finished in this section of, right? And then attach that into the DOM. So that's where, for me, I had these items, right? So I also want you to do it like I've done here, where you hit inspect, right, and you show us your console. That way we see if there was any errors in your code. And by the way, and this is a good time to get used to this, because now that we're moving to the DOM, to the web page, working here would become much more important, because you will get your stuff that you may be used to doing on your console log stuff will come here as well. So just get used to that. Okay, so that's the first part, right? So again, take a print screen, and remember how we've done print screens, right? Is when you'll upload it into your images, right? When you look at it, and you're right-clicking, right? In this case, I think there's a couple ways you can do it. I think I opened it in a new tab, right? Right-click and then copy that image address, right? And that's how you then embed it into your reply, right? By using your image, right? And by the way, by now, it's good to know, right, how to do this, how to write your image tag. So get used to writing that image tag as it's supposed to be written. If you're not sure, look it up. Right, image tags are pretty straight, but this is kind of just your enabler to help you get through it if you don't know how, but learn how. Okay, so that's part one, right? So then, and then part two is this. I've been looking at the calendar and realizing something that's going to happen in our next Develop It 3. And so I'm going to do a change here. So let me look over to the calendar. So in this case, I'm recording on the day after your Develop It 2. I haven't graded them yet. But and this item is due obviously here on the 8th. And as I've said before, I'm traveling this week. And then there'll be a Learn Together. And then this week will be the week before our Develop It 3, right? So normally, and I've seen I think most of you this week, which is great, right? So here's what's going to happen though for me is that I'm landing back in Fresno, and then and if you haven't heard, DevFest on Saturday, and I've been normally doing like 2 or 3 appointments on Saturday, and it's just going to make my schedule crazy. And then I thought, you know what, let's change Develop It 3 to where, in this case, you submit it by the due date. And if you want to come see me, reach out to me this week. But I'm going to give you this following week up until this 29th to actually come talk to me and do a code review, right? So, and at that point, if you come, and this is the key piece of this, and I want to make sure in your reply you understand this, is that if you come see me, right, during this week, then you can change the code. But if you don't come see me, you can't. Right? So yes, you can come see me earlier if it works out for both of our schedules, but that code being due, you can come see me this week up until here, right? And then if you do that, we can, if you have things you needed to fix, you can. But I really hope to do more of a better code review, right? But the thing is, on this time, we're actually going to step back a little bit from the functionality we've done so far and get it into the DOM. So I'm like, okay, this kind of makes sense. And again, I'm doing it because of my availability as well. Okay, so that's that. I am going to be working on, so hopefully you got that, is that, and you can submit it here. You can see me the week before, but you can see me the week after. You can change the code only if you come see me. So if you submit here and don't come see me, then that's the code that I will grade. But if you submit here and come see me, then you can change it. All right. So that's that part. The other thing, and I added this requirement this week, right? So on here, and so I've already got one person that's done it, but on this, I've added the requirement, and I want, and I on the attendance, I'd ask you to give me your feedback about adding this requirement of the write-up of just a short paragraph on what you learned out of those videos, because what I'm seeing is if you're just watching these videos one time through, and you're struggling with getting these develop it dones, the biggest benefit you can get is actually to go through and really run this again if you can, because this is really, it's a little deceiving because you're watching him do it. It's when you actually have to do it on your own that it gets more challenging, which I want to add one requirement next time on our second one, and you'll see this, is I also want you to tell me how well you did at the challenges, right? Now, this is just, I want you to give me the truth. Like, if you're not giving the challenges some time and trying to figure out how to write that code without him showing you the code, then you're not benefiting from it. But just be honest about it, right? Like, I spend a few minutes thinking about it and then I go watch him do it. Well, I went back through those challenges over these last, because I went and just finished this section to do this learn together. And I noticed I had to spend a few minutes trying to get that code working. And I was so tempted to go, oh no, let me just watch it. But I knew it wouldn't help me. I knew it wouldn't help me if I did that. So I really want to know, in addition to your write-up on the ones that are the challenges, how much time did you spend, right? How much and how well were you able to write the code without looking at his solutions, right? I want to know that. Again, I'm going to start this on part 2 because this one's already been up and available. Okay. All right. So the last thing I'd just like to say, and it kind of goes back to this idea of what I'm changing here, is that at this point in the semester, right, since we've finished this second round of code reviews, that's why I'm kind of loosening up the requirements here a little bit, not only because of my schedule, but also realizing that if you at this point don't see a benefit to coming to see me for code reviews, there's no thing I can convince you, nor do I need to. But more than anything about this, right, is that I know your coding style. I know where you're at. And so when I grade your work, I'm going to have a better idea of where your personal coding style and level is. And that's really part of what I wanted, right? Not that I'm saying any of you would, but I know coming into this class, one of the things that can be tempting is just to go find examples out on the web. The why this is harder to do that in this class is that we're writing modern JavaScript, and so much of what's out on the web is not. So, but anyway, I've gotten to know I've gotten to know that. But hopefully you understand the thinking I have, and you understand the way this is going to work, right? So then we move into the next section, which is just continuing this idea, right? So if we go look, I'm not even going to look. You have the idea. So just to complete here on this learn together that I'm going over on the reply to here, right? I want you to let me know you understand and provide any feedback you have on this change that I'm doing. So I want to make sure you understand. And your 150 words can come from either either of these, and then 2 substantive replies. All right, have a great one, and I'll talk to you soon.